I filmed 2 hours worth of makeup decluttering yesterday and my microphone wasn't working. It sounded like I was underwater and I blame Mercury retrograde. It is what it is. I'm bummed about it, but today I'm gonna show you what survived my blush declutter. And I like this angle a little better anyway. I think it offers more value because I went through over 60 blushes yesterday, really trying to isolate the shades and formulas that I love and use regularly. And so now you get to see what actually made the cut to stay in my collection. So let's dive into this drawer, but first, if you're new here, hi, my name is Miranda. I've been creating beauty content here on YouTube since 2012, but I'm so glad you found me today. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so here is where my blush drawer is at after getting rid of half. So I had over 60 blushes yesterday, and now I'm down to just over 30. I want to point out that this is obviously way more than a typical makeup consumer, but please remember I am a makeup creator. But I feel like I've kept enough in each category. I have it separated here by liquid, powder, and cream, so that way I can have variety in future content I create, but I really did narrow down to the blushes that I either already use regularly or want to use regularly. So why don't we start in the liquid category, which is right up here in front. First up, we've got the e.l.f. Camo Liquid Blush. This is in the shade Berry Well, and I am definitely a huge fan of berries and red blushes, which you are definitely going to see in this collection. And the thing with these e.l.f. Camo blushes, I feel like people either love them or hate them because they are so pigmented that a lot of people say they're kind of hard to blend out. They always look super heavy. It is just a matter of getting used to how much to apply. Like even this swatch would have been too much if it were on my face. This is a blush where one dot is gonna do ya. This is almost like a wearable red. It leans so close to red, but still with a very visible pink undertone that it's a little more universal. And a lot of people say that these camo blushes are dupes for the Rare Beauty Soft Pinch blushes. And I do have a video where I compared them and wore them side by side in a wear test. I wouldn't say they're like super close dupes, but when it comes to like pigmentation and performance, they are very similar. But I did decide to keep both of my Rare Beauty blushes as well. I have them in Encourage and Worth It. Encourage is like a really cool toned mauve, and I have definitely been embracing cool tones recently, especially in fall, but ever since I did my color analysis last year and I learned that cool tones actually kind of make my skin glow and my complexion stand out, I've been trying to find some staple cool tone makeup items, and this is definitely a shade I love to wear. And then this one is Worth It. This one's a little bit of a warmer medium pink. Maybe even a peach would be a better way to put it. It's just not too orange of a peach that it ends up making me look yellow. So these are super pigmented, super long wearing liquid blushes. Now, speaking of this shade, because I actually, as I was going through and doing a declutter, I think I found a dupe in my own collection for it from Pretty Smart. So I have a whole video about this brand. It's still relatively new at Walmart. It is a clean beauty brand, vegan, cruelty-free, talc-free, and it's actually from the same founder as The Balm Cosmetics, but everything is like $10 or under at Walmart. So this is their liquid blush in the shade I'm Dreaming, and just look at this shade comparison. Okay, I'm gonna have to do it over here, but hello? Let me blend it out so you can see. I mean, it is a very close shade. Now, one of my goals with this declutter was to try to not keep so many of the same type of shade, but I had to keep these two because I think I'm gonna do like a dupe comparison on them. And I think the Rare Beauty is what, like 23, 25, and this has to be like $7 or $8. Next up, I did not realize that I had this shade, which, you know, is always the point of a declutter as well, to rediscover products that have been kind of buried in the drawer. This is the L'Oreal Le Liquid Blush from their Lumi collection, and this is actually the shade Worth It. So you may have seen, I just posted a YouTube video about how their Color Riche lipsticks in Worth It and Worth It Medium are pretty much dupes for the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk lipstick. I had no idea that they also had a matching blush. Or maybe like I knew, but I didn't put two and two together, if that makes sense. So this is a similarly kind of nudie, peachy shade. Now, I would say that this is kind of on the cusp of how warm I can go with my blush. Because again, I feel like a lot of times with warmer blushes or with blushes that have kind of a yellowy undertone, they end up making me look really yellow. So, it's hard. I actually decluttered a lot of kind of orangey blushes yesterday. And this is definitely kind of as far warm, I feel like will still look good on me. I can pull it off if I've got the right look happening with the eyes and everything kind of matches. And then especially wearing the matching lipstick as well. Now, this was the only Le Lumi blush that I actually ended up keeping. I had every single shade in the collection. The thing with this collection is that some of them are just like this, where they're kind of glowy. Others are straight up glittery. And I did not like the ones that were glittery. And then the other ones that I had that were not glittery, I just didn't feel like they were super unique enough for me to keep them. Now, here's a drugstore blush that I think is super underrated. Not a lot of people talk about this. This is the Pixi Sheer Cheek Gel Cheek Stain. A lot of people talk about the Pixi On The Glow blush. Like, this is the one that has gone viral. And I actually just talked about this in a recent video, but nobody's ever talked about this. And the reason that surprises me is because this is perfect for like the no makeup look, clean girl trend. It really does just add the most natural looking color. So I have the shade Natural, which is a little bit more mauve, and they also have a much redder kind of berry color as well. But check this out. Very sheer, kind of a stark contrast from the products I've been swatching so far. Is subtle. It's moisturizing. It looks just like you have a little bit of flush and nice bouncy skin. So if you're much more of a natural makeup type of person, or you just don't want to fuss around with these super pigmented formulas that will require you to kind of work at them and blend them out, this is so easy. And look how pretty that is. Obviously, this shade is only going to work for certain skin tones. I would say light to medium, and on medium skin it will look much more subtle. And they do have a darker shade as well, but this is great for when I really just want to add a little bit of color back to the face without kind of going all out. Now, I will say probably my favorite liquid blush, especially at the drugstore for the past couple years, has been the Physicians Formula Diamond Filler Mineral Wear Cheek and Lip Color. I do only wear these on the cheek. I don't really wear them on the lips. This is in the shade Radiant Pink, and I have just loved this formula. It is so glowy without being overly dewy or shiny, and it blends like a dream. Really pretty medium rosy pink shade. You can see it blends out really well without losing a lot of color. And this shade has just been a go-to because I feel like it matches everything and it just complements my skin tone really well. And you can see the difference with these two, how orange the L'Oreal one is looking now, like in comparison. And that's why I said this is definitely at the limit of warmth for me, because these are the types of shades that I think look best on me. Speaking of the balm, because we were talking about Pretty Fresh, that is from the same founder. I have one of their Talk is Cheek blush creams. I don't know why that name is so hard for me every time, because I want to say Talk is cheap. This is in the shade Lecture, and this is another mauve, but it's a little less purple. I feel like there's a spectrum of mauve, and it goes from like rosy all the way to purple. Some might consider this more of a muted pink, muted rose, whatnot, but this is another really good like everyday shade for me. Not too cool, not too warm. It's like a Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And I just like how lightweight that is. It does set while still looking natural on the skin without too much dew, but it's also not like flat matte. Oh, there's another e.l.f. that I kept, I forgot to mention. This one is in Suave Mauve. See, and this one's a much more purpley mauve as well. So I think that was like three purpley mauves that I kept that maybe I didn't need to. Now, I'm almost doing like a second round of decluttering for this video. But now that I think about it, I think I bought this one because it looked like a dupe of the Rare Beauty one too. But I think this one's a little less purple. Comparing this to the Pretty Smart Mauve, see, like that's a huge difference. That's so crazy. This is like the spectrum of mauve that I was talking about. This has covered all of the spectrums. We already swatched this one, but just so you can see, to validate that I didn't keep too many of the same color. Now I kept 2 of the Moira Love Steady liquid blushes, and just a reminder, I do have a code /beauty15 to get 15% off Moira. These are insanely good. And the thing with Moira is that like in some parts of the country, you can find them in stores. Most of the time it's just online. But I feel like Moira is creeping onto the scene of budget beauty lovers who maybe used to be super ride or die for e.l.f., but with like the recent price raises, you're kind of looking for other options. Moira is another brand that has incredible formulas, and a lot of their products are like $15 or under. So I kept My Darling, which is this one, and then Trust. I think My Darling is a little bit more of a peachy shade. And again, I wanted to keep some warmer options for when I do warm eyeshadow looks, because I can still rock a warm neutral shadow vibe, and when I do, I can't really pair it with a cool toned blush. It makes the look seem off. It makes my skin look weird. So I feel like that has enough pink in it, again, that it's not super yellow on me. So that was My Darling, and this one is Trust, and this one's much more of, we're running out of arm space here, kind of a pinkish purple. What would you call this shade? Like a dahlia purple? It's almost like a muted fuchsia. I mean, come on. Really, really pretty and long lasting. All right, there are only 2 more liquid blushes in this section, and one of them is limited edition. Now, if you've watched my channel for a while, you know that typically I'm not a huge fan of limited edition makeup. I don't really like talking about it because at some point you won't be able to get it anymore. You can still get this. I found it on Ulta's website. This is the Wet n Wild Nightmare Before Christmas Lip and Cheek in the shade Shock Value. As a whole, I was a little underwhelmed with this collection, which was unfortunate because I love Nightmare Before Christmas. It is my favorite Halloween/Christmas movie. But this shade was good enough that I did want to keep it, even though I decluttered the other ones. The other ones were also very clearly Halloween-y and like very orange. But this is a really pretty, almost like brick red. It's just a little bit more muted, but as you can probably tell from everything I've swatched so far, I am a huge fan of reddish blushes. Wet n Wild's Lip and Cheek is very underrated. I don't really hear a lot of people talking about it. It is a pretty good value for the price. Look at that shade. It's so pretty. And the last one, this is a very unique shade in terms of my blush collection. This is the About Face Blush Rush in Grand Prix, and it is a very reddish brown type of shade, but heavy, heavy, heavy on the brown. So I've actually used this as a bronzer. So double duty as a blush and a bronzer. Like, check that out. And I will say, on my face, it looks a little bit more red. You can see more of the red undertones when it's like on top of my foundation and blended out, etc. But yeah, it's definitely a brown blush, and I just thought that this was super unique. And the thing with About Face, I always reach for it when I just need my makeup to perform. So concerts, festivals, weddings. I just wore the About Face foundation to a wedding, because the whole thing is, this is Halsey's brand, the musician Halsey, and she designed a lot of this makeup for herself to wear on stage. So it lasts. And I just love this blush formula. Again, you do get that kind of radiant finish, but this will not budge once it's set. And I have worn it for over 15 hours with barely any fading, and I was sweating. Okay, so that is it for the liquid blushes. Ooh, my skin's getting irritated from all the swatching. Now let's move on to this middle section, which is powder blush. However, the first blush I'm gonna pull and show you is sort of a hybrid. This is the About Face Cheek Freak, and this shade is Big O, which is sort of a deep red. Now, the thing about this is it is a cream to powder formula. So you touch it and it definitely feels creamy, but as you apply and blend it out, it absolutely blends out into a powder finish. It's soft, it's silky, and it's incredibly lightweight. It really does not feel like cream on skin. This has probably been my second most used blush this summer. I will show you the first one in the cream blush section. So this is often how I wear it, a little bit more sheared out. Sometimes I'll build it up more if I'm going for drama, but because it has that powder finish, it definitely works well for most skin types. Like, it's a cream formula and you get that blendability and spreadability, but it's not gonna get shiny or dewy throughout the day. Okay, this next powder blush is another red. So, I'm trying not to bore you with all the red blushes, but I am so in my red blush era. This is the Kaleidos Mono Blush. I believe the shade is called Sanguine. The shade is labeled on the box, which I've thrown away, but this is an indie beauty brand that has incredible luxury formulas and packaging, but for like a mid-range price. And their blushes are so silky and velvety. It just feels like butter. So this is a little bit warmer of a red, maybe a neutral red, but look how beautifully pigmented that is. And this is definitely not something I have in my collection. And this is one that I can wear. I think I could probably pull off both with warmer eye looks, but look how soft that is. It's so beautiful. Now, in contrast, this red from Luna Magic, this is like a super ripe watermelon red, or this is a POC owned brand you can find at Walmart, and check out this pigmentation. I mean, this is designed to be pigmented enough so that all skin tones can wear it. Though for my skin tone, I mean, a little goes a long way, but look at that. Oh my goodness. I consider this more of a watermelon red than a cherry red because you've got that strong pink undertone to it. So beautiful. Next, I did have to keep the iconic Milani Baked Blush in Luminoso. I actually decluttered 2 other shades. One of them was just pulling really orange on me, and it's not one that I reached for often these days. And then the second one was too glittery for me, and my preference is now. Luminoso is just such a cult favorite peach shade, and what I love about it is that it's luminous without glitter. This is just super glowy. The shimmer is much more on the fine side, whereas the other shades, it was giving super sparkle. I'm trying to swatch a little bit this way because I can tell my skin's getting irritated in this spot. The plight of beauty creators. But again, this peach leans warm without being too yellow or orangey on my skin tone. I just think it's gorgeous. Another sort of peachy shade, but much more pink leaning that I kept was the e.l.f. Primer Infused Blush. This is the shade Always Crushing. And this is just a great summer blush. Because it's primer infused, it lasts so well. I feel like for summer, a lot of people do kind of lean toward cream and liquid blushes because they kind of just melt into the skin better, and maybe they work with sweat a little bit better. But if you are just much more of a powder blush type of person, this is one to pick up for hot weather. Oh, I got cat hair stuck to my arm. And so you can see it's definitely peachy, but a cooler peach, especially when compared to Luminoso. I just love that color. A good amount of pigmentation without being so strong that, you know, it's kind of a struggle to blend, and it stays really smooth throughout the day without separating or becoming splotchy. Here we have the Pretty Smart Extra Pretty Pressed Blush in Goddess. Now, here's my thing with Pretty Smart. They have done a great job creating these, you know, clean, what they mean is like vegan, cruelty-free, talc-free formulas that feel high-end, but again, they're available at Walmart. Very, very affordable. But where they've cut costs is the packaging. It is just this cardboard packaging. You've got a light magnetic closure, and then this like cellophane window. I'm not a huge fan of the packaging, and I don't travel with these because of it, but I do like the product a lot. And this is such a great everyday kind of rosy mauve shade. Again, there is slight shimmer to it, but it's not super sparkly. It's a little bit more cool leaning without going too purple. Another one that I reach for all the time is the Revolution Blusher Reloaded in Rose Kiss. This is sort of a medium neutral rosy shade. I find that it matches no matter what I'm wearing on the eyes. It's not quite, for some reason when I looked at it, I thought that it was like a baked formula. It's not quite. It has a very velvety feel. There is zero sparkle to it, but there is something in the formula that does keep it looking kind of radiant or natural on the skin. Next, we have the NYX Butter Melt Blush. This is the only one that I own. It's in the shade All the Butter, which is the purple shade. I love a purple blush, and I feel like a lot of people are intimidated by it. When you actually blend out a purple blush, because purple neutralizes yellow tones in the skin, you can really blend this out to be a bit more pink leaning. Like it'll end up with more of a fuchsia appearance if you really keep it sheer like that, but you can build it up for more of a statement as well. And these buttermelt blushes, like the only reason I haven't bought more is because hello, my drawer was absolutely insane and I knew that I shouldn't be buying more blushes. But this is probably the best powder blush formula at the drugstore. They were so spot on and innovative with this formula because it's almost powder to cream, like the opposite, because it's obviously a powder formula, but it just blends out so softly and melts into the skin, like hence the name. And it does have, again, like radiance without sparkle. Actually, I won't speak too soon. I think some of the shades have like more obvious sparkle. This one just looks radiant. To me, it gives the effect of a cream blush, but in a powder formula. And finally, this is another limited edition shade, but I really liked it, so I decided to hold on to it. This is the ColourPop Pressed Powder. I believe this was from the 11/11 collection, which might have come out like 3 years ago. This is the shade Message Me, and it is kind of like a warm terracotta shade. And like I said earlier, I do really like brown blushes. And this one's a bit softer than, say, that About Face liquid blush. I just think this is so pretty for fall. I'm not sure if they have a similar shade now in like their normal colors, but I think that that is such a cool blush shade. All right, so that's powder. And the last section is cream blushes. I am just gonna rearrange this so that it's easier for me to grab. Before we get into the last part of this video, if you're enjoying it and you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you considered subscribing and turning on post notifications. But if you're already part of the Slashed Squad, hey, it's great to see you again. Hitting thumbs up on the video helps YouTube show it to more people. Back to it. By the way, these little containers I got at the Dollar Tree, and they came in a pack of 3 for $1.25. And then I have a basket back here, but the problem is these IKEA Alex drawers, they don't come out all the way. So anything back here, even though the drawer goes like deep, anything that ends up in this basket, never touch because it's just like hard to reach into. First off, I want to talk about my most used blush this summer. Without a doubt, it is the Versed blush stick. This is the shade Bloom. This paired with their bronzer stick has been my go-to grab for this summer. Ignoring that my arm is getting increasingly redder as time goes on, I just love this color. It's like kind of a pinky purple mauve. It doesn't lean too far either way, but I've actually worn this and have barely used highlight this summer because of the dewy finish. It's just enough radiance where I'm like, you know what? I don't need another layer of product. Look at that, so glowy, but it doesn't feel heavy or sticky on the face. So that has absolutely been my most used over the past like 3 to 4 months. Now, what really surprised me was that most of the cream blushes that I kept were ColourPop lip and cheek balms. So I have 3 from their permanent collection, and then I have 2 that are in this limited edition packaging. I'm not sure that they still sell these. Personally, I obviously prefer the Heart Compacts, but these are a little bit easier to travel with, and I do travel with them. So I will go ahead and swatch these all for you. So the first shade I'm gonna swatch is Lucky You. Definitely a lighter pink. I did not really keep a lot of light pink shades out of this entire collection, as you could tell. So when I came across this one in the Declutter, I was like, this is definitely unique in my collection, and I want to have it as an option. This is sort of like, I consider this Sabrina Carpenter pink. It's balmy. It feels hydrating on the skin. Now, I typically don't wear these on the lips. I think I said that earlier. A lot of lip and cheek products, I just don't really like how they feel on the lips. These ones feel okay because they're balmier than some of the others that claim to work both ways, but it's just not something that I typically do. Because what am I going to do? Am I going to carry this around and stick my fingers in it like throughout the day? No. This next one is Second Date, brownish mauve, maybe even like a reddish brown is a better way to put it. Again, another shade that I didn't feel like I really had in any other formula. And then last out of what I believe are the permanent shades is Larchmont Village. This is probably the one that I use the most, again, because I love a good brown blush. And this one is more of a muted brown. It almost has like a little bit of a plummy undertone to it. So if you want to like tiptoe into brownish blushes, this is a good place to start because there is a little bit of a mauve vibe to it. Okay, so these two I don't think you can get anymore, but correct me if I'm wrong, or if I find them, I'll put them in the description. I have Heart's Content and Adore You. Heart's Content is another one that is a little bit lighter than the other blushes I kept, which is why I wanted to keep it in my collection. This is like a Barbie pink. I think some people would consider this Barbie pink. I consider this like it's a little bit more fuchsia. And then here is Adore You. Once again, running out of space. Really gonna get into the arm crease here. That one's like a little bit deeper, leaning more toward hot pink. So those are all of my ColourPop lip and cheek balms. Obviously, one of my favorite cream blush formulas, and I didn't even really know it until this declutter was done. Next, we have the Pixi On The Glow Blush in Ruby, another red. What a surprise. I just talked about this in the video I made testing out old viral makeup and seeing if it still holds up in 2025. This definitely does. Not only is it an incredible value with how much blush you're getting, but I love this formula. If you are a dewy skin lover, you're gonna love this. There are ways to make it a little less wet looking, and my preferred method of application is actually applying this with a brush, which does help kind of temper that wet look and feel. But this was like kind of my first foray into red blushes that got me really into how they look. Beautiful for summer and incredibly radiant. But I will say, like, compared to the ColourPop balm, even though they both have sort of these balm consistencies, I feel like the ColourPop one is less wet looking and feeling, like it just sets a little bit more. But this one is still great if you're chasing that glass skin look. Next, I have one of the Milani Cheek Kiss cream blushes. This one is in the shade Nude Kiss. This is another one that is a little bit cream to powdery. Like, you can just tell the difference in finish between these two. This does dry down, it does set, it looks very even, it blends out very smoothly. Really great formula if you want something a little lighter. Next, I have one more Rare Beauty blush. Now, I think this was the original Rare Beauty blush that went viral, but it was very quickly eclipsed by the Soft Pinch liquid blush. I still really like the Melting blush. It is a very natural looking product on the skin. It is more subtle. This is in the shade Nearly Neutral. This is a very, very soft formula. Actually, this sort of reminds me of the About Face formula, except a little more sheer. Like, you can tell that this is really just giving a hint of color. So I usually grab that when I'm wearing a very light face of makeup. I want it to feel light and look light, but I really need some color back into my face. And this is a shade that does look very natural on my skin tone, and it doesn't really read as she applied blush. And finally, last but not least, I wanted to swatch these last because they definitely stain and quickly. These are the Revolution Jelly Blush Lip and Cheek Stains. Now, when I first tried these in a video, I was shocked. I was floored because I've always hated this jelly type of blush. I know they became a super popular product that a lot of different brands tried out, but every time I tried one, it would apply like crumbly and super, super patchy. I would never be able to like layer it up, especially when it came to applying them over foundation. I felt like this type of formula was always prone to pulling foundation out of place until I tried the Revolution one. Whatever they did, they got the jelly blush right. It glides onto the skin, no crumblies, and it does give that sort of stained appearance, and you can build it up without it being patchy. This was cherry, by the way. Here's strawberry, and I'll show you tapping is kind of a better solution in terms of getting it to look a little bit more blended. And then we have peach. Here's a better example of how I would actually apply it to my face. And these will not budge. And the other thing is I've had these open for several months now, and as long as you have this plastic part that comes with it inside the cap, I mean, they haven't dried out yet. So those are the cream blushes that survived my declutter. And again, fully aware that this is a lot of blushes, but I'm also not trying to show you the exact same products in every video when I do a makeup look, you know what I mean? I hope this was still fun for you to watch, and I do want to know, do you prefer seeing the full declutter decision process, or do you prefer the streamlined approach where I'm just showing you what was good enough to keep? Tell me in the comments. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video, and let me know if you saw any of your favorites in my collection. If you want to keep watching, join me over in this video next. I'll see you over there. Bye!